Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So, of course, we just had the Berkshire Hathaway annual general meeting last Saturday, Woodstock for capitalists. So, just today, I spent hours plowing through both the morning session and the afternoon session to tease out my highlights from this once a year, just incredible event for value investors. And I wrote a Twitter thread, 25, 26 tweets, kind of highlighting what I thought were the most interesting points from this weekend's Berkshire Hathaway meeting with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. So in this video, I'm going to share what I took away as highlights. If you want, I'll leave the link in the description. You can look at this thread on Twitter yourself. But I'll just be using it to kind of guide me through what my highlights were. So let's jump right in. Warren and Charlie were asked, do you ever make bad investment decisions because of your emotions? Okay, this is something the vast majority of investors do. Warren says, I can't recall any time in the history of Berkshire that we made an emotional decision. Okay, and Charlie really agreed with that. There was one kind of asterisk that came along with that. There have been times where managers, as they get quite old, maybe they aren't as sharp as they used to be. But both Warren and Charlie think, that's nothing to get too worked up about. And often the businesses perform even better with management kind of having more of a hands-off approach. So right off the bat, just an awesome answer. They are unemotional when it comes to investing. Charlie Munger says, I am personally skeptical of some of the hype that's gone into artificial intelligence, right? It's the big thing right now. He thinks, I think old-fashioned intelligence works pretty well. Of course, the crowd got a chuckle out of that. And then Warren kind of expands on his thoughts on AI. We did invent, for very good reason, the atom bomb in World War II. And it was enormously important that we did so. But is it good for the next 200 years of the world that the ability to do this, right, has been unleashed? AI can change everything in the world except how men think and behave. So, Warren has I'd say healthy amount of, not a healthy amount, he has a fair bit of skepticism about what's going to come out of AI, whether it's a net positive for humanity. Charlie is asked about commercial real estate. Charlie's the one who has much more background in that than Warren does. Charlie said, I do think that the hollowing out of the downtowns in the U.S. and elsewhere in the world is going to be quite significant and quite unpleasant. Real estate is difficult. I like what we do better, okay, at Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway tends not to get involved much with real estate because of the tax treatment. It's just not a sector that's particularly tax advantageous to the structure of Berkshire Hathaway. Next, Charlie says, my advice to value investors is to get used to making less. Okay, they're really asked about, in terms of the environment, the investing environment compared to what it used to be. Charlie tends to be a little bit more skeptical. It's going to be a more difficult environment for value investors. Warren actually takes a little bit of the opposite view. He says, new things coming along, right? Technology advancements don't take away the opportunities. Now this is, at first glance, maybe it doesn't quite make sense. But he says, what gives you the opportunities is other people doing dumb things. Okay? And that makes sense, right? Anybody who's read Poor Charlie's Almanac, who's listened to Charlie's talk, The Psychology of Human Misjudgment, which I did a whole series on each of those misjudgments on this channel. That's what gives you opportunities, right? Other people doing dumb things. And Warren said, I would say there's been a great increase in the number of people doing dumb things with how easy it's been to access money from other people. The world is overwhelmingly short-term focused, right? This has just gotten more and more so in recent years. If you go to an investor relations call, they're all trying to figure out how to show earnings that result in expectations that will slightly be beaten, right? That's what's good for the stock price, right? If expectations are slightly beaten. That's a world made to order for anybody thinking over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Looking ahead that far. It's a very uncrowded game to play, taking that long-term approach in the investing world. Warren says, I would love to be born today and go out with not too much money and hopefully turn it into a lot of money. It sounds like he's quite confident that he would be able to do that today. If you're running small amounts of money, I think the opportunities will be greater, right? So Charlie thinks it's going to be harder. Warren thinks it's actually going to be easier. And they each kind of have the justifications for that. Number 9, if you want to figure out how to live your life, write your obituary, right? Start with the end and reverse engineer, right? Figure out what do you want people to say about you at your funeral, and then live up to that, right? Make that a reality. Obviously very quotable, so on point. I love this. Number 10, we haven't created the unity of purpose as a country to tackle climate change. Okay, it might take an emergency before we can all kind of rally and really make progress on it. So that's an unfortunate reality, but that's the perspective of Warren and Charlie. There's a reason why our operations have by and large done better than other big conglomerates. Okay? One of them is we change managers way less frequently than other people do. That's helped us. And, that makes sense, right? If you have someone managing a business and you bring in someone else to replace them, it takes so much time to get them up to speed. And, there's just a lot of inconsistency when managers get changed in terms of what the priorities are, how much you're trying to cater operations to meeting quarterly expectations. It's very difficult to keep a consistent culture, right, at a business when you have these frequent management changes. And culture in the long term is what drives so much of shareholder value. Charlie says, I think the best road ahead to human happiness is to expect less. Okay, that's fantastic advice, whatever time you're in. But in this case, Charlie is also pointing to, he thinks it's going to be harder moving forward. So that's Charlie's take on things. Number 13, Warren says, we don't know the future, but we do know certain kinds of businesses. We know what the right price is. We know what we think we can project out in terms of consumer behavior and threats to a business, right? This one is really about circle of competence. Sticking with what you know, knowing what the edges of your knowledge are and staying within that. One of the inane things that's taught in modern university education is that vast diversification is absolutely mandatory for investing in common stocks. That is an insane idea. Okay, this is Charlie talking. It's not that easy to have a vast plethora of good opportunities that are easily identified. So, why would you, this is something I think I've heard from Warren, why would you put money into your 15th best idea when you could just put more into your top 5 or 7 or 10 ideas? Charlie, I am deeply distrustful of situations in which everybody wants to get rich and envies everyone else. I regard that atmosphere as utterly toxic. Okay, so kind of chasing money at the expense of everything else. It's just a terrible way to operate. I see no option for any other currency to be the reserve currency, right? The global reserve currency. Talking about the US dollar. Nobody knows how far you can go with a paper currency before it gets out of control, right? So, we're operating a bit loosely here in the US in terms of printing money. We're really taking advantage of the fact that we are the global reserve currency. So, we should definitely be smart about it, but at the same time, Warren just doesn't see any other currency being close to the US dollar in terms of becoming that global reserve currency. Charlie says, we have a situation where we learned to print money in gobs and let a big chunk of our young people go right into wealth management. Warren says, like we did, which was a funny moment. Charlie says, yes, we've been bad examples. Charlie continues this, I didn't realize wealth management was going to get so big when I went into it, and I want to apologize for what's happened. So this was kind of a profound moment from my perspective in the annual meeting where, Warren and Buffett have really inspired, I think, a lot of investors, particularly value investors, to dedicate their lives and energies to this profession of investing, right? Managing money, both for themselves and other people. And Charlie is a bit regretful that we have so many brilliant minds in this country going to that, pursuing investing as opposed to, all of the other things those brilliant minds could be put to use towards. He thinks there's more important problems to tackle in the world than figuring out how to make the most money. So that was a profound moment. The mistakes to avoid are anything that will take you out of the game. We've heard this many times. Avoid leverage, for example. Avoid debt with the exception of a mortgage for your house. Okay, home-based mortgages, assuming you apply. Right, you meet the criteria, and the banks aren't going loosey-goosey with handing out mortgages like they did back in 2007. Mortgage can be a really great deal for people. It can be an intelligent way to take on debt. If you're losing sleep at night over your investment portfolio, you're doing it wrong. Okay, so avoid anything that can take you out of the game. Number 20. It's so simple to spend less than you earn. Invest shrewdly, avoid toxic people and toxic activities. Try to keep learning all your life. Right? Do a lot of deferred gratification because you prefer life that way. That is such a powerful sentiment. Just this one sentence here. Do a lot of deferred gratification because you prefer life that way. Right? Make it a lifestyle choice. Do all these things and you're almost certain to succeed. Number 21, you need to know how people can manipulate other people, and you need to resist the temptation to do it yourself. Right? Back to this psychology of human misjudgment talk. There are many ways to mislead people and to be misled ourselves. And we really ought to learn, right? We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to everyone to learn how to avoid those situations and not take advantage of others using those kind of psychological loopholes or tricks. Get the toxic people out of your life and do it fast. Right? This goes back to you're the product of the people that you spend the most time with. Some say the 5 people you spend the most time with. So really, the idea is surround yourself with people who are better than you, right? Because you will rise to their level. Number 22, when asked about Paramount, right? Berkshire invested in Paramount. Buffett was quick to say, we are not in the business of giving stock advice to people. People who don't know anything about stocks can make a lot of money doing that. And we don't think it's something we should give away, right? having these insights about businesses that Berkshire invests in, that Warren and Charlie invest in. These are very valuable insights. Okay, so there's no reason for them to just be sharing that stuff freely. Right? In some sense, that's the secret sauce of Berkshire Hathaway. Number 23, Charlie said, even if we weren't worried about global warming, it would make sense to shift to renewables to conserve our hydrocarbons. There are certain things hydrocarbons can do that nothing else can do. Right? It's a precious resource. There's only so much of the hydrocarbons there. Why not be cautious in conserving them? Right? Finite resource. Charlie thinks we should really be putting them to use for things that really we don't have anything else that can kind of serve those purposes. 24, we've had as much fun on deals that didn't work in a certain sense as the ones that did work. This kind of gets back to the idea that nobody bats 1,000 in the game of investing, right? Mistakes are par for the course. Part of the fun of the game is that you hit the ball into the woods sometimes, right? You're not going to bat 1,000. And, this is really about the process, right? Buffett, Munger, they love the process. They love the journey. And so it's okay that sometimes things don't work out, right? That's not why they're doing it. It's a profound wisdom there, right? The journey versus the outcome or the destination. And finally, last tweet in the thread, Charlie says, I'm quite philosophical about my grandchildren not thinking exactly the way I do. It seems to me that's almost the natural course of life. I just live my life my own way, and they can absorb it if they want to. Right? They can pick and choose the examples that Charlie sets for them. I don't like it when they try some other way, which got a chuckle from the crowd, but that's life, right? And this really speaks to the idea humans, we're disobedient. Okay, it's human nature to be disobedient. And if Charlie tried to force, his wisdom, his way of living down the throats of his children or his grandchildren, they're more likely to just veer even further away from that, right? So there's some wisdom about human nature here. The best we can do is serve as a model for others, right? We can't make them act in any way. So just a parting piece of life wisdom there. So that's it, guys. My kind of 24 tweets in a thread about this latest Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. Always such a pleasure to dig into it. If you liked it, please like and retweet. If you guys are on Twitter, and it's well worth it, guys. The first 20 minutes are kind of talking through the latest, the numbers, the financials for Berkshire Hathaway. So there's just shy of 5 hours worth of Q&A. I watched it on 1.5 speed, so still quite a commitment, right? 3.5 hours it took to get through this. But it really is worthwhile. There were some things I didn't include in the Twitter thread that Buffett talked about fairly recently, his investments in Japan, and also kind of what's happening with banks. He covered that a fair bit in his interview with Becky Quick in Japan. So I kind of left that out. But I also did a Twitter thread about that if you want to kind of scroll through my feed. But that's all I got for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this recap of what I found useful and insightful from the Berkshire annual meeting. And thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Take care.